Welcome, welcome, welcome to Uncovering Hidden Healing. I'm your host, Dr. Arletha Lizana, and I'm so glad that you are here with us today. Every week on this show, we go looking for healing that's just been hidden in plain sight, in our traditions, in our ancestral wisdom, in the practices and gifts that most people have overlooked, but they are changing lives every single day. Season 3 is all about ancestral healing. The idea that healing is not something new we have to find, it's something old we have to remember. And today, oh, today, we are going somewhere that I think is going to flip a lot of what you think you know. Let me ask you something. Have you ever known a Black woman, maybe it's you, who has always been described as too much, too sensitive, too intense, too emotional, always in her head, couldn't sit still, saw things that other people couldn't see, felt things that other people seem not to feel at all. And somewhere along the way, someone gave that clinical label and told her something was wrong with her. What if nothing was wrong with her? What if everything, all of those traits looked like heightened sensitivity, the deep perception, the ability to feel what's in the room before anyone speaks? What if those are not deficits at all? What if they're gifts? And not just any gifts, ancestral gifts, transmissions from the lineage passed down specifically to her for a purpose. That is what we're exploring today. And I brought back someone who I knew was exactly the right person for this conversation. Some of you are going to recognize my guest today because she came through in season 2, and y'all are not ready, right? So Sister Keachia brought something that the conversation, that our community is still talking about today. So Sister Keachia Bowers is a registered clinical social worker and level 3 Reiki master and the founder of Movements for Change. It's a holistic healing practice where she has guided over 1,000 people towards emotional healing and transformation across more than 15 years of practice. She has created community murals across the US, Jamaica, and Africa, and she runs an inner child healing circle. She is a thriving survivor who has healed her own deep wounds and turned that healing into a movement. But what makes Sister Keisha's work so extraordinary for today's conversation is how she holds this space where spirituality, neurodivergence, and ancestral healing all meet. And she does it without pathologizing, without labeling, and without leaving anyone behind. So, Sister Keachia, welcome back to Uncovering Hidden Healing. I'm so happy you said yes to this one.
Thank you. And in my quirkiness, I was writing down what you said at the end because I said, that is so me. How did Dr. Arletha find those words? Where I convert spirituality, neurodivergence without pathologizing. I stray away from that because we put labels on clothes and not on ourselves.
That's right.
And I was just like, oh, let me write down what she said.
No, I love that. I love that. So, before we dive into the deep end, let's bring everyone in because I know there are people watching right now who are new to the conversations. Maybe they didn't watch season 2, but it's okay. So for everyone who is meeting you for the first time today, how do you describe what you do at Moments for Change? And Movements for Change. And what specifically drew you to the work at the intersection of neurodivergence and spirituality?
Okay. Oh, that's packed already. So
take your time, whatever you like to say. Everybody needs to hear it.
And I love being here with you. So, okay. So with Movements for Change, it initially started out as me focusing on childhood trauma, my own. So I went through a journey of discovering that who I was a repressed, collapsible version of me. And that there were parts of myself that I had tried to bury because I grew up in an environment that told me that I was too much and that I needed to shrink myself to make everyone else comfortable. What woke me up into that space was my father transitioned. He passed away. And what I acknowledge about the relationship that I have with my father was he was a rescuer for me. So when that rescuer role disappeared physically, I was left with myself, my ancestors, the divine, and parts of myself that I had hidden for so long. Because as we know, well, we really don't know because culture doesn't teach us this, but grief is a gift.
That's right.
Grief helps us discover parts of ourselves that we don't see. Mm-hmm. And I was in the deep, dark abyss of grief, but in that grief, I started to find parts of myself. And I started to document what I was experiencing. And so he passed in 2014, and in 2020, so 6 years later, I created the Inner Child Healing Program, and I launched Movements for Change. In between 2014 and 2020, it was a slow, because, you know, self-discovery is overwhelming. So my dad passed in 2014, and I didn't register my business until like 2015. And I didn't go to Africa until 2017. And I didn't launch the program until 2020. Literally every path. And this is why I tell people, don't try to be attached to the outcomes.
That's right.
If you have to go with where spirit leads you, because everything that I was experiencing was leading me to the deeper part of Movements for Change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I started out, I want to help other women like myself. We're going to do this inner child healing, and we're going to talk about codependency. And in the middle of all of that, my son was diagnosed Asperger's level 1 autism spectrum disorder. We no longer use the term Asperger's, but it is a familiar term that, like, you hear it and we kind of know what it is in our society. Mm-hmm. So it's that high intellect, high intensity, everyone else is the garden, you're the rainforest experience.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the psychologist who came to test him, Dr. Tiombi Bisa Dune, her work is phenomenal. Okay. She said, Keachia, 90% of clients that test high intellect, because she first tested his IQ, it was 138, and he was intellectually gifted. That was what she first said. Then she said, you might want to test him for autism. And we went ahead a year later and tested him with a neurological doctor. And they said, okay, yes, he is ADHD level 1. And she sat me down and she said, 90% of my clients have a parent who is on the spectrum. And I think you should consider yourself.
You hear you're assessing your son, and it's like, what about you? That's right. Yeah. Wow.
I never, and that's like the story. I'm going to cry. Y'all know I'm a crier. Yeah. That's like the story of my life, right? Like, I don't really see myself. I only see myself through everyone else, because I grew up just constantly trying to add layers to myself, because I didn't think that who I was pleasable and what everyone, I didn't feel digestible.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I felt like people always choked on my presence.
Right. That's right.
And then so the people around me, I mean, said things that made me feel like I was too much.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know how to feel myself and say, maybe there's something deeper going on with me. My son had to come and bless my life.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
He came as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And he is still a gift.
Right.
You know, till this morning, preparing for this show, I wrote him a letter apologizing for because we are symbiotic. So we reflect each other so much that sometimes it's so much for all of us. Mm-hmm. And so I was apologizing to him yesterday for not listening to him clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So what I have to constantly do in my healing is be aware and mindful of how the intensity shows up for me.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So I was apologizing. He wrote me this morning and he says, Mom, I want you to know that your message had me crying and I love you. And I said, and I love you. Mm-hmm. And then he says, man. And then he started in his quirkiness writing the lyrics to one of his songs because he's a musician.
Yeah. No, I love that.
I'm like reading it. I'm like, this is your song. What are you saying?
I love that though. But that means it's, you know, you're in his heart and in his song. I love that.
I'm in his heart and in his song.
Yeah.
And so every day is an unfolding,
mm-hmm.
you know,
right.
And an opening up. It's a gift. It's like I get to open up a new gift every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Wow, that was profound. Okay, you know, like where do we start? You know, so in season 2, we asked the question, what if neurodivergence is of sacred design? You know, and our community loved that reframe. So now for season 3, taking it a step further, what if the gifts that neurodivergent Black women carry, like the heightened sensitivity, the deep pattern recognition, the spiritual attunement, the ability to perceive what others cannot, what if they're not just individual traits, but ancestral transmissions? You know, what if the lineage is literally speaking through these women in concentrated form? Like what's your take on that?
I truly believe that. And I was looking down because I actually have, so I wanted to say that I initially started with women, right? But then because of this whole energy around neurodivergence, I started to attract women and men for some reason who did not realize they were on the spectrum. And through working with me, I would refer them to go and get tested, and they would come back and be like, oh my God, I'm on the spectrum.
Exactly.
So I think I have a rare attraction to people like myself.
Yes, gift.
It's a gift, right? So I want to say first, so I have a lovely transform me, as I call my community, that I work with, that I saw recently. And in working with her, I was doing research about the suicide rate amongst high intellect spectrum and neurodivergence. And it's high.
Yeah.
So I first want to hold space for that awareness, because if we don't see it as a sacred, what did you call it?
The sacred design, sort of like.
If we don't see it as a sacred design, we become self-destructive. Because then we treat ourselves the way other people treat us. And if other people can't die, if we are indigestible for others, can you imagine what they make us think about ourselves? So I just want to hold space for that reality, that I know that that's there. And in this space, you know, we recognize that.
Yes. Right.
So it's important for us to reframe and do. And I truly believe, Dr. Arletha, that it is a sacred design. There's a gifting that comes with it. Now, there's a listing online around people in our society that we respect who are on the spectrum with high intellect, like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and other levels of neurodivergence. Whoopi Goldberg has dyslexia, which is a neurodivergence.
Yeah.
Right. And so because it's sometimes easier to process it from the lens of someone else, we have a deeper understanding of how sacred it is when we see someone in their gifting.
That's right.
So it's important for the individuals who are neurodivergent, whether your neurodivergence is spectrum related, ADHD, dyslexia, even when we talk about some oppositional, because this neurodivergence, opposition is very typical. Going against the grain and some of those behaviors, those are all signs of neurodivergence.
Right.
Right. We want to normalize the conversation and reframe it. It is a sacred design. And I do think that it is. It's when we connect to our gifting, you know, and we were able to do that with my son. When I discovered that he was on the spectrum and he was intellectually gifted, I started to tap into what he was good at and enhance it. So he started out making movies at 10 years old, writing scripts and making movies. Now he's a producer and a musician. He's on Spotify. He's performing all over. He writes his music. He plays the piano by ear.
Wow.
I gave him a piano. I said, you just do whatever. And one night I was sleeping and he was playing Beethoven.
Wow.
And I stopped in my room. The tears just started rolling. And I got up and I said, Sadiq, where did you learn how to do that? He said, I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
He said, I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. Yeah. That's a gift. So, you know, so when we're looking at these as a sacred design, you know, like, how do you think that that's connected to like ancestors, like our lineage, you know, for Black women, you know?
So this language and the labels and all of this understanding, we already know it as alchemy. We understand sacred geometry in African culture and in African spirituality. We already understood the as above, so below concept in our lineage. We understood that the tree root looks exactly like the tree on the top.
That's right.
That in order to be grounded, what happens down below has to happen above. Right? We knew this. We understood that what was going on in the heavens, it's going on right here in the 3D realm. Our spiritual practices and our ancestors understood this. That's why they connected to nature. Yeah. We live in a culture that has not created space for us to operate and function from those spaces. And so we have to give that to ourselves.
That's right.
I don't think that I truly understood what was happening with me and for me until I came to African spirituality. It offered such a lending ear to my uniqueness because there's such a strong focus on destiny and purpose in African spirituality.
That's right.
And I read The Healing Wisdom of Africa by Malidoma Somé.
Yeah.
And when he talked about being in his initiation, he was left in the forest.
Yeah.
And when he talked about modern education not holding space for individual, because our experiences teach us. Not sitting in a classroom. We learn practically in those spaces, but our daily life lessons are really where we see who we are.
That's right.
Right? Now, for me personally, I'm a dreamer.
Yeah.
And I've always been, though. I did not know when I started to think back about my childhood dreams, because, you know, some of them stand out.
Yeah.
And I had one specific dream from when I was 12 years old. My grandmother passed away. And 3 days after her funeral, I had this dream that I had to go up in this elevator. I was 12. I had to go up in this elevator and go far, far, far up in the sky. And she was sitting in this round room, and I had to go across. I had to walk around to go to her, because if I walked across, I was going to fall down. And I walked around and I went and sat with her, and she had a conversation with me. And I started to reflect back at how much of a gifting that was. But no one was there to process that and tell me that that's actually a gift that you have.
Yeah.
Because in the 3D reality, I thought gifts were tangible. Like, you know how to play the violin, or you know how to cook, or you know how to draw. But my gifting is clairvoyance. I can't see it. Unless you sit in a session with me or you have a conversation like this, you really don't see my offering. And I didn't see it. So again, it is sacred. It's linked to the mothers who came before us.
That's right.
Right? Our maternal lineages, women who were practicing with nature long before they knew that what they had was in their veins.
That's right. That's right. No,
right?
Yeah.
And we should know that too.
Yep. I mean, absolutely. You know, I dream too. I'm one of those people. But also it's kind of like, because our gifts are not as tangible as others, they're downplayed and people don't believe it. It's kind of like, oh, you know, like, how can that be? You know, and so when you see something or you say something or you dream something, people discount it, you know, because they think it's not the truth, and it ends up being the truth. So, but that's a separate story, you know, but the research is starting to confirm that the heightened sensitivity, hyper focus, you know, deep spiritual perception, these are not accidents, they're features, right? They're built in, like you said, they come from our ancestors, you know. So, you know, for Black women, like you just were talking about, the mothers, you know, so what does the research and your lived experience tell us about how neurodivergence shows up differently in Black women? Because the clinical, you know, the clinical picture was not designed with us in mind. So how does, you know, what is it differently?
First of all, we know that all testing in Western culture was fashioned on European non-melanated, including the IQ test. When I heard that my son's IQ score was 138, and I thought, and he took that Europeanized test. Can you imagine if he did something that was really including him in mind, you know? And she said what made him stand out in his tests was, she asked him if there were 3 things he could change about the world, what would they be? And she needed them listed by tier, like most importance. And the first one, that his response was that he would go to the jails and prisons and he would set all the people who were wrongfully incarcerated free.
Right. I know she was
when
like,
she said this, he was crying.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's wow.
He was 10 years old, Dr.
Right. That's what I'm saying. For a kid, that's like, what? Like, what are you thinking on that
But
level?
she begged me to understand that level of depth comes with a lot of pain. And that I should be very mindful and aware of his anxiety and his depression. And that I should hold space very carefully for his existence.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you understand?
No, I love that, because it's like, you know, the system and the masking, the misdiagnosis, you know, the system is kind of designed to fail. So it makes Black women like, oh, because you have these gifts, something's wrong with you.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I love that you're telling this story of your own, personal experience.
Yes. So what the research says is that our European non-melanated counterparts in the medical, all levels of medical profession, whether it's psychology, psychopathology, medical care,
Mm-hmm.
we are melanated women are considered capable of handling pain
Hmm.
in large, higher dosage.
Mm-hmm.
So depression, we are not going to be considered for depression if we're unwell. We're going to be considered unstable and
Mm-hmm.
maybe something wrong.
Yes.
The society is not going to say, oh man, our European counterparts are considered, even in educational sectors.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to say, and this is from Dr. Joy DeGrew's research, by the way. I worked with her here in South Florida before. I've worked with her directly, and
Mm-hmm.
she personally sat me down and said that in her research, little Timmy is going to go for a psychological evaluation, but Raekwon is going to go into detention.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, it's true.
Okay. She said that we are not generally what's really happening for us. There's like this overall gaslighting
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
happens for us when it comes to our mental health. So neurodivergence can easily look like schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
need y'all to know this.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Hearing voices like I hear,
Mm-hmm.
where I get a lot of information, things
Mm-hmm.
that you would not, names, dates, and incidences that there's no way I could know.
That's
I've
right.
been told through a voice in my head.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to be careful of how I report
Yeah.
that.
And that's the ancestors speaking. It's ancestors, it's the spirits that you work with, they're speaking, right? They're angels, if people like the, that term, whatever term, their energies, whatever term, is comfortable for them. But it's a thing, and you can hear it. But, and when Black women have these gifts, it's like, oh, that's not true. Something's wrong, but be 100% telling
Yeah.
you 100%. So it's weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
tell you something is wrong. They'll tell you it's not true. The research is telling us what ends up happening to us, and we also have to think about, like, we're marginalized.
Yeah.
We're kind of pushed to the curb and
Mhm.
pushed in this box when we
Mhm.
have circumstances that affect us. And, when we need help, we're poor and we're incapable. But when our counterparts need help, oh my goodness, they
Mhm.
must have had a hard time.
That's right. Yeah. So
They
it's
must,
not only mistaking the gifts for some type of problem or issue, but it's also when we genuinely do need help that we are like, oh, you can take more pain. There's nothing wrong with you, or gaslit. So,
yeah,
and then even if we do get help, it's not usually the right help. It's something that continues to make things worse or marginalizes us. So, this is not just, it's layered, it's a lot to it. Yeah.
it's very
You know,
layered.
Yeah. So, I want to go somewhere specific because this is where the conversation becomes something most people never heard of before. But in African diaspora spiritual traditions, there's always been roles for people who perceive differently. So you have the diviner, the seer, the healer, the one that reads cards, the one that reads tea, the one, just knows stuff, the one that feels what others cannot. So these were not people who were sent to a specialist or given medication. They were recognized, trained, and given a sacred role within the community. So how, for as far as like how have our sacred ancestral traditions honored what we call neurodivergent traits? Like were these gifts recognized and given purpose in the community? So like how does neurodivergence kind of look spiritually, and were those things honored?
I'm going to go back to Malidoma Somé and his former wife Sobonfu Somé, because she
Mhm.
talks about this in her work around intimacy.
Mhm.
And definitely, in our society, and I lived in Ghana for 2 years. I want to say that being around the spiritual systems when I was in Ghana, when someone becomes an akomfo, and there are ways that because if they're barefoot, then you know that they're in a comfort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it even beyond given the role and the responsibility that's in alignment with their gifting, but even holding an identity on the outside.
That's right.
That society can say, oh, yes, I know who that is.
Yes.
Like, you know, would I wear these earrings to work?
Yeah.
I
No.
probably wouldn't, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to tone it down and look professional.
Mhm.
You know, I had a teacher who once said, and she's a Ifa priestess, and
Mhm.
she said, you know, jewelry was not for adornment. Jewelry was for spiritual
Yes.
knowledge at once.
That's right.
That everything we wore had a message,
Mhm.
right? So even in that awareness, we know that our African spirituality once allowed total identity,
That's right. Yeah.
indulgence. And,
Mhm.
yes, absolutely, there were roles that were given to us
Mhm.
and hierarchies.
That's
And
right.
sometimes, you know, I even love the practice of, I don't know if you remember, if you saw the interview with Michael B. Jordan.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
You know, he was being interviewed on the red carpet and they asked him, where did he get his name from? Because he has an Ifa name.
Yep.
And he
Mhm.
said, from a Babalawo.
Yeah.
His mother
That's right.
was part of the tradition.
Yeah. That.
He knew what his role was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right.
They made sure that he knew who he was,
That's right.
that he acted accordingly.
That's right. Yeah.
It is unfair. It is an injustice when we are living a life that tells us that we have to shrink who we are. And this shows up in our intimate relationships too.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
You know, we have to be so self-aware, so mindful of who and what we allow in our lives.
Yep, you said a word. Yep.
While we are in our destiny path at all times. Right. So when I saw his interview, I kept rewinding it and watching it over in my and I'm like, did he say what I think he said? He said, first I thought he said he was a Babalawo, but the more I played it, he said, a Babalawo gave me my name when I was born.
That's right. When he was born, and he had his Esataye, and they gave him not only his name, but what his life, the destiny, and things that he was supposed to accomplish. Oh, here is here.
What a gift.
What a gift.
What a gift.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, you know, and everyone does not practice African spirituality, but how do we encourage anyone who's watching this to move closer to that version of themselves? I like I said, I remember this book I read called Raising the Intellectually Gifted Child. And it said you have to see that child as the rainforest and not the garden.
That's right. That's right. It's right. You're getting into my next question. So I was going to say, like, so for me as a Ianifa in the Ifa tradition and a Okomfo in the Akan tradition, like myself, you know, I can tell you what you're describing is exactly what these traditions hold. It's the ones that could feel more and sense more and perceive more. They were not problems to be managed, you know, it's resources to be developed. You know, this is what you were sent here to do. These are the gifts that you have and how you use them. And the community recognizes those gifts. So they're not seen as a problem. You know, if I have a dream, I am telling the truth. You see what I mean? Based on my training and based on, you know, the seat that I hold in a particular community, because they know who I am and I'm telling the truth. And if I have these gifts, it's what it is, right? You know, so in our, you know, Western society, it's hard because they're taught, like, if you can't, you know, see, touch, taste, smell, you know, hear, if it's not, you know, on the paper, it don't exist. Like, you don't have any proof, you know, and our proof is just different, you know, so it's hard. And like you said, so my question really is, what happens when a Black woman starts to see herself through that ancestral lens instead of the clinical deficit lens? So what have you seen when Black women are starting to embrace these things?
So what happens is, first of all, you start to make decisions that will upset people.
That's right.
Because you start to choose yourself more and you become unapologetic about it, right? And there's this radical shift that happens. I always say you can even hear it in your voice.
That's right.
Because I know for me, when I became closer to, and I'm nowhere, I think I've just barely scratched the surface. but my voice even started to project in a different kind of way. That if you met me so many years prior, you wouldn't believe I was the same person. But you actually begin to feel this, because when we are running from ourselves, we dissociate. We go through this thing where we don't want to feel connected to our bodies.
That's right.
And we want to escape. So we start to do things that lead us into escapism, right? And we move away from the way we used to have fantasies and dream and really be in the safe space of the mind. We we're trying so hard to fit in. They call it masking. Even in general, amidst neurodivergence, whether they're non-melanated or melanated individuals, males get diagnosed sooner than females because we know how to mask, especially around high intellect. Because there's this version of us that is very pleasing. Like I skipped a grade and I got a full scholarship. I went to college when I was 17. I got a full scholarship. I did my master's degree. Those things came with a lot of ease, but no one saw my suicidal ideation. No one saw how sad I was, how much I cried, how every bit of rejection felt like someone was stabbing me in the back. People saw the version of me that made them comfortable. And especially in my family system, there were things people could brag about, like, oh my God. So if I wanted to be accepted, I just continued to do more of whatever that was.
That's right.
Right. So every aspect of my life was really an illusion. It was, I'm going to continue to exceed. I'm going to do best when I go to work. Every year I got best therapist of the year. I became so boring, or like, getting married and having children and staying in the relationship, just doing whatever I thought was going to get me more love. But there's no one who can love me more than myself.
That's right.
And I just continued to run away until I crashed. That's right. And that crash can look, I'm so glad I survived the crash. Depending on how long you've suffered and what you've been through, that crash can look in so many different ways. So we want to be held. I can't even remember what the question was. I just know that you deserve to hold yourself and be around people who will hold you just the way you are. And there will be people who won't. Oh, I remember now. Like, how does it show? Because people are going to be like, she's so not digestible. I feel like I'm choking every time she comes around. But then there are going to be people who love you so much because you start to love yourself. That's right. That's most important.
Yep. You definitely answered the question. So I was just going to ask you next, can you give like one example of maybe someone de-identified, of course, someone that you worked with, who had the heightened sensitivity, like a new neurodivergent Black woman, and then how they begin to understand the spiritual gift rather than the liability,
oh my goodness. Yeah. I have so many, but there's one who just started to stick out. I worked with this individual for so many years. In the beginning, it was just all depression, because no matter how much I try to help them see that they were depressed because they were around people who put them down and made them feel like they were the problem, they couldn't see it. They truly bought into the idea that they were really sad and something was wrong with them. But then they would create this beautiful art. That was just, it was so mesmerizing. It held me. I would be like, you did that? You created that? Yeah. And their poetry was just so profound. And I would be like, where? And after maybe about 2 years of working with this individual and coaching them to move out of the family home that was reigniting and issuing the pain, to move out, eventually I said, I think you should get tested. I think you should check with your insurance, go to a neurologist and get tested. And they came back and they said, I have level 1 autism with depression. And everything changed from there. That diagnosis changes a lot.
It does. Yep.
Now they started to realize that they had a brilliant mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just took so long.
Yeah.
It just took so long because they really believed that they were lazy
Mm-hmm.
and that they were never going to get it right because they didn't do the things that you do in society, like get a job, stay with one job, and do the right thing.
That's right. Yeah.
I have not met anyone who has been on the spectrum that I've worked with who has just done one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Y'all don't want to know my portfolio.
I know mine either. They already know I've been doing.
I talk to you, I'm like, man, I've done this, I've done that, and then. But to the outside world, those appear to be achievements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have not really fully done what I need to do.
Yeah.
I've done what feels good and what I think is going to get me some time to that plate. But I've done a lot.
No, it's true. It's true. It's like you've done all of these things, but did you do them for yourself? You know what I mean? Really, so it's so interesting. Like, so I want to bring in something, that I think layers on top of what you're just discussing. It's the strong Black women schema, right? So this cultural expectation that we hold everything together and never show vulnerability and never need support. And we just be quiet and shut up and just, it's this, pressure. And I feel like it hits neurodivergent Black women in a specific and painful way, because here's the double bind, your nervous system is already working harder than most people to process the world. You're already carrying more sensation, more perception, and more feeling. And then you have been told your whole life to hold it together and never let it show. So, like, how does this intersection of the strong Black women schema and neurodivergence show up in your work? And, what does that combination do to women, Black women, over time?
Well, that's what I wanted to go through to immediately. Your latter question. It's like, eventually you either have an implosion or an explosion.
Mm-hmm.
So the explosion is kind of obvious, right? You become reactive, abusive. Right. You become where you kind of, and with the client, the transformee that I mentioned earlier, the anger and the anger outbursts, the people could say, oh my goodness, but look at you. Look at how you're behaving. Oh, we're going to have to get you to the psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
This is right. So eventually you either explode or you have micro-aggressive explosions over time because you can't take being stuffed in the box any longer, or you have what I call an implosion. And I need you all to listen to what the implosion is carefully. It's dis-ease in the body.
That's right.
It's autoimmune disease.
That's right.
And the doctor, his name is slipping me right now. Gabor Mate. He talks about this. Your body starts to fight itself.
Yeah.
Because if you're holding it in so much that no one can see you and what's happening, then it's all happening in the body.
That's right.
And we then have dis-ease. Mine showed up in the form of a dis-ease of my uterus, adenomyosis. It's a pain that I don't wish on anyone.
Yeah.
And it's chronic.
That's right.
But they always find a way to explain, oh, you had a C-section. No, I buried everything inside. I know what it is. That blood started to attach to my uterus. Inflammation. My body fighting itself. It can be cancer.
Yes, right.
It can be diabetes. It can be hypertension. The autoimmune disease. It can be, we you name it, we've had it. So we need to be mindful.
That's right. That's right. We need to be mindful, and it's just so a lot to try to understand because, like our diagnostic system, like you said, it's not helping. Black women are massively underdiagnosed with ADHD, autism, other neurodivergent conditions, because the research was done on white guys, white boys, the presentation looks different, in women, and the clinicians are still catching up, So for me, I'm like, so how can families and educators and community members and even ourselves, how can we better support neurodivergent Black women and girls in recognizing their gifts rather than pathologizing their differences? How can we not keep it inside, so it causes disease? How, and if that has happened, how do we heal ourselves? And then how our families and how do our educators, how do people also help us? What
You know, in my work, I asked this, what I call the magic question. And I might have asked in the last season I was in with you, but I'm going to ask again. And you want to start from here. And it's, how old were you when you needed the most love in your childhood? Right?
Yeah.
You have to return to that version of yourself that was conditioned to believe that you were the problem.
That's right.
And you have to be so willing to hold that part of yourself so closely and understand that her reasons for abandoning herself were valid, but they were from a long time ago.
That's right.
They were valid though. And give yourself permission to ask for what you need from the people that surround you.
That's right.
And that's the only way that you know who is who and what is what.
That's right.
If we are always the ones to please everyone else, we don't know who is for us or against us.
That's right.
Because we're putting in all the work. But when you start to ask for what you need and notice who gives it to you and who doesn't.
That's right.
And see someone's inability to give it to you as a direct red flag. Until you start to do that, you will always be that strong Black woman.
That's right.
Your children will be fine. They can't be okay if you're not okay.
That's right.
And so when we talk about what can we start to do, first of all, family members, it's imperative that scapegoating the family member who is different, the Black woman, the girl who is different, is not going to work. And when I say scapegoating, making them the problem and being so uncomfortable with however they show up, looking at it as a response to what they've experienced and not a personal attack against the family system. I've had my personal experience, if it's okay for me to share.
Yes, please.
Yeah. I have been like on my platform with messages around healing and inner child healing. And I've had family members think I was talking about them personally. And actually address me to say that I was on social media. And I said, why do you think my content would be about you?
Right.
I work with so many families and people. That was not about your mother. That was not about anyone. That was my and then I found myself over explaining and trying to get them to understand and tell. And then, so if you villainize the outspoken, quirky, high intellect person who feels everything, who's willing to be open, if you villainize them and make it about you, then you're never going to get to understand and connect.
That's true. That is so true.
Don't villainize them. Try to listen to understand.
That's right.
And what we can do to take care of ourselves more is set our boundaries. Set our boundaries.
That's right.
And be willing to make somebody upset.
Somebody gonna be upset.
Be mad.
No, it's true. It's true. All right. I want to make sure that everybody watching walks away with something they can actually, like use right now. So, because I know someone is watching right now who has spent her whole life, being told her gifts or problems, spend her whole life people pleasing and, doing all the things. And I want her to have the next step. So what should she do now? What's one practice or shift or perspective or something that they can do now to start honoring their gifts rather than managing, these symptoms?
Okay, I'm going to say meditate, but I know for high intellect spectrum neurodivergent folks, because I know what was happening to me, meditation can create a lot of anxiety because you're sitting still and everything is just like right there. So this is a form of meditation that I want to teach you all. And I'm not trained or certified, but I do practice Reiki, and you do not need, it is an ancestral wisdom, the power of touch. In African spirituality, we call it your ashe.
That's right.
We all have ashe.
Mm-hmm.
We all have goodness that flows within us, and we can touch ourselves with our own goodness. So I'm going to tell you a practice, and I learned this from a godmother that I had once, and I practice it through, and I use my Reiki. In addition, I merge them together. But your ashe is your breath, right? That's the gift of life that you have, and that's where your gifting is. And when you do this, you're going to visualize inner parts of you that are so beautiful coming out. So you're going to blow into your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to smooth over your aura,
Mm-hmm.
your own ashe, all over from head to toe. And then you're going to lay hands on your chest and feel your ashe flow through your body.
That's right.
You can visualize a ball of fire or fairies moving through your hand into your heart.
Yeah.
But just move that ashe. You have it.
That's right.
It's yours. We don't have to look out of ourselves anymore. We thought we did because of valid reasons, but those reasons were from a long time ago.
That's right. Yeah. Wow. Well, I love that, and what you just described is exactly what I write about in Ancestral Roots, my book. Is this idea that the wisdom was always there. Our ancestors knew how to hold these gifts. We just have to remember how to receive them. So tell us a little bit about how does the inner child healing work you do at Movement for Change? Like, how does it connect to ancestral healing? Because I think there's a bridge that people might not immediately see.
So there's a version of us that we think we become 21 and it's gone. And we have experiences that in order to feel safe, we bury them. And when we become adults and we hit 21 and older, we have what I call invisible make nice antennas. We actually want to make nice with the very thing that we were avoiding. We want to fix it and make it right. So what we do is our antennas come up and we go, we put out a signal. Now in lay terms, it's energy, frequency, and vibration, or I like to say EFV. We have, right? So we put out our EFV and we match ourselves with the vibrational match to the very thing that we buried and tried to avoid because we didn't give it our attention. And we spent our life trying to fix something we did not create.
That's right.
Because we believed we were the problem.
That's right.
And the part of ourselves that does this fixing journey is the inner child. It's the age that you were when you needed the most love. Now, for someone who is neurodivergent, how that looks is deep vulnerability. You are so open to abusive relationships because you think, first of all, we're going to talk about high intellect. Intellect will make you think you can fix it.
Yes.
You can explain it. You can make them understand.
Yeah.
You can intellectualize it for them to get it.
Yep.
You're gonna get it right. I don't know about y'all, but I was good with math. I was very smart. And I love to solve puzzles.
That's right.
I play Scrabble. I still play Scrabble, and I'm 48. I like puzzles. I like word puzzles. I love real puzzles that you put on the table. Fixing things feels good.
Yeah.
So can you imagine how that played out in my well, I don't want to say sick, but I was in my dysfunction, right? Like I needed to pair myself with the thing and it became a puzzle.
Yeah.
And that was not okay. So there's this unusual connection to my own neurodivergence and the gifting that I have around this inner child healing. Because I somehow know how to help people unravel what their own EFV has been attached to, and how to break that bond.
Yeah.
I don't know how I know this. I really don't.
It's a gift.
I do know that when I created my program, which is like an 8-week course type experience, I woke up out of a dream. I thought it was a dream, but it was a voice that woke me up. And when I woke up, they told me to open my laptop and start to type. And they were giving me what I needed to type.
Yeah.
And what they were giving me became my 8-week program.
Yeah. Yeah. That is amazing. You know, it could be your ancestor, you know, maybe some ancestor did this type of work before, even though it wasn't formalized, you know, back then or whatever, but you never know, you know, but it's definitely a gift for you to be able to hear that and for you to, you know, be able to help people, you know, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
And
that's
I
so
do have a grandma. I got to say her name. My grandma, Ruby Ann Wright.
okay, good.
She definitely was a healer, and she did sit with people from all walks, and she helped them, you know. And she was indigenous. She was from Panama. So she had a lot of indigenous practices, you know, and she used a lot of herbs. And she didn't have a name for it, but I know she knew what she was doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So I'm going to go and take a couple of questions, you know, from the audience, you know. So one question is, for a parent who suspects their Black daughter might be neurodivergent, what is the first thing you would tell them to do?
Ooh, for a parent who suspects that their Black daughter, give them a hug first. Rock back and forth in the hug, because that's healthy stimulation. I also recommend, before my son even got tested, I went online and I bought him these kits that helped him to deal with the urges to like, they were fidget stuff, things that he could do with his hands, because motor stimulation is primary for a child who might be neurodivergent, and observe them in that experience. I also made a rice tray. So I got a tray and I put rice. So crazy thing about me, y'all need to know, it's wild. Before I even was a mother and had children, I had one child, didn't have my son yet. My first job after I got my master's degree in social work was I was an advocate for parents with children who had on autism, who are on the spectrum.
Oh, that right. Yep.
So I actually know, like, for real things to do.
Yeah.
So I made my son a rice tray, and I got all his favorite gadgets and things so he could play in the rice tray. Again, it was for his motor skills. And then I called Dr. Tiombi Bisadun and I got him tested.
Yeah. Wow, that is beautiful. I'm laughing because I have this thing right here on my desk. It's kind of like this. I got it, and it has like little beads on it that you can feel. It has like the sand in it. And then if you open it, it has like a little stone, like a worry stone. You can put scents on it and everything. So I have it right here. I'm like,
I love that. So I'll show you what I have on my table. So I just made it with one of my clients who's a child. So for me, crocheting, the feeling of the yarn, it actually feels really good for me. And then the repetitive act of the needle looping, for some reason, it feels like a stemming, they call it, for me. So I need repetition. And then I'm going to actually make it into a pin.
Yeah, no, I love that.
So because I'm really artsy fartsy and I need to create stuff. But it's very, very important that they have space to feel. And controlled stimulation is important because lights, sounds, and smells and tastes, textures of food, those, when it's uncontrolled, when it's coming out of nowhere, it can be startling, to say the least. So when they are creating their own stimulation, it actually is good. My son stims, and he has a new one that he does that he's 15, so we can laugh about stuff. And it's funny, but I've never seen a stim like this, and he goes 3 times. Just like that. It makes him feel better. And I encourage it.
I have one of those. It's a little strange. I actually talk about it in my book, so I'm giving y'all a sneak peek in the book. So I have this thing. It's like turn my mental roll. So I had this little toy when I was little. It's like a little piano, and you can turn the roll and it'll play a different song, right? And so I have this thing like I'll do when I feel like the roll has too much in it and I want to start again. I'll turn the roll. That's the thing that I do, like turn it, and then it has a new song for me.
Oh, I love that.
I know I talk about that in my book. It's funny. It's like a mental, and it does help me.
We got to do these things and not feel like no one can see us doing it.
Like that's
embarrassing. What, what is this? Why are we doing this? Give her space to do that and be herself.
That's
and
right.
maybe in watching and listening to us speak about this, you're probably already thinking about what it is that she does.
Mm-hmm.
But get the tools to promote that stimulation.
Yeah, no, I
And
love
get it
that.
tested.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So someone also asked, is it possible to be neurodivergent and a healer? Like, are those two things compatible, or does the nervous system intensity make it harder? Can you be both?
Oh, when you're grounded, you definitely can.
Mm-hmm.
When you know who you are. I mean, I haven't fully stepped into my full, and I try to be mindful because a healer just sounds like such a big responsibility.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're guides.
Mm-hmm.
We're guides for others, right?
Yeah.
And I think what I do is cute right now because it feels safe for me.
Yeah.
And I know how to do it. But there's a version of me that is going to be harder to channel. And it's not going to be as cute as what I'm doing right now. Like offering readings.
Yeah.
Like, I'm scared. I don't even want to say that out loud, right?
You're like, yeah. No, it's true though. Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So when I become my grounded version, which I'm in the threshold right now of that, because I'm releasing an experience that held me back. But as I move closer to myself, I'm going to be that neurodivergent guide too. When we feel grounded, and not so overstimulated, it gets better.
Sorry.
It gets better. I used to have wicked panic attacks.
Yeah.
I'm about nothing crazy. I'm talking about ambulance, called 911. Thought I was having a heart attack. When the ambulance came to my house, I'm standing at the door upright, and I'm like, I'm having a heart attack, and I need to go to the hospital.
And they're like, ma'am, yes.
The ambulance is like, ma'am, you're not having a heart attack.
Yeah.
Just took your vitals. But then I'm thinking, right before I had the panic attack, I came out of a dream where I saw something that I didn't know how to regulate what I was feeling. Right? So we just got to get regulated.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And so last one, and this one I love. Someone asked, how do you know the difference between an ancestral gift and a trauma response? Because sometimes the sensitivity feels like both. Like, so how do you discern between an ancestral gift or a trauma response? And, does the distinction matter? Like, I don't know,
I have a big distinction. Stillness.
Okay.
Stillness. When it's ancestral, it's very still and unwavering.
Yeah.
And when it's a trauma response, it's very chaotic. Very chaotic and wavering, unstable. When it's ancestral, you hear it, you feel it, and you have time to receive it.
That's right. Yeah.
It's very still.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very still.
Okay. Yeah. I love that.
And I mean, I'm saying that as a woman who made a life decision that was so hard and very uncomfortable and felt chaotic, but there was stillness in it.
Even inside the chaos, I believe that. People always say, people think chaos is just like wild destruction. I was like, there's actually order within the chaos. You just have to get to it.
There was stillness in that for me, and I made the decision.
That's right. There is.
I
love that. It's like, even within the chaos, there's stillness. There is. Yep. I love that. Yeah, that's beautiful. So, Sister Keachia, I always close with the same question because the answer always carries the whole conversation inside of itself. But is there one thing that you want every neurodivergent Black woman watching today to walk away knowing about herself, her gifts, about what her ancestors passed down to her on purpose? What is the thing? What do you want people to take away from this conversation?
I wrote a note to myself. I have a bulletin board in my room, and I write to myself messages, maybe weekly, just remember. And what I would like you to know is what I wrote to myself in my message this past week. And it was, remember who you are. You are lovable. You are beautiful inside and out.
That's right.
And you matter. You matter.
Yes. That's right. Beautiful. I'm going to carry that. I really am. Thank you, Sister Keachia. That's conversation where went exactly where I needed it to go. I'm glad it went that way. I know it meant I know it meant something to someone today, because they needed to hear it as well. So, before we let you go, how can our community find you, work with you, and connect with you through movements of change or, social media handles? Like, how do we find out what you're doing and connecting with you?
So my website, mymovementsforchange.com. I'm actually going to put it into the chat.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you all can see that. mymovementsforchange.com is the best way to get to me. I am in a transitional phase for myself. So a lot of the active things that I had, like I used to do monthly meetup Reiki circles, and I used to do like I had a group, like my women's group, that I used to do, every other month or so. I've kind of taken a step back, but I am still offering my sessions, and I am on social media on TikTok and Instagram. TikTok, it's Movements for Change LLC. And on Instagram, it's official Keachia Bowers. It's my name. I'll type that as well. And you can send me a message. I am offering one-on-one sessions right now. And the Inner Child Healing 8-week program for women that is private and not in group. I'm also offering that still. And as I always say, I'm here for the healing, beginning with my own.
That's right.
And so I look forward to anyone who is ready to dive deep.
Yes. Thank you. So we'll have all Sister Keachia's links will be in the comments, and they'll be in the show notes. And, go find her. If this episode stirred something in you, that stirring is your ancestors trying to get your attention. So don't ignore it. And while you're in the comments, I want to tell you about something very exciting that's happening just a few weeks. So on Thursday, May 8th, I'm hosting the official launch of my debut book, Ancestral Roots, Awakening the Ceiba Woman for Health, Healing, and Wholeness, published by Llewellyn Publications. So, everything that Sister Keachia was sharing today about sacred gifts, ancestral transmissions, and what our lineage passed down on purpose, that is the heart of this book. The launch event is free, it's virtual, and it's going to be it's going to be at night. It's going to be wonderful. I'll be reading from the book. I do a little ancestral honoring ceremony and then other announcements I can't wait to share with the community. So you can register free, right now. So it'll be in the comments. And then if you want to pre-order the copy, so it's in your hands on May 8th, the link is for that too. To our community, thank you so much. Season 3, we are building something together, and every Sunday we go a little deeper. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and do not miss what is coming. So until next Sunday, you were not made wrong. You were made gifted. And today, I hope you heard a little bit more of what that means. Thank you so much, Sister Keachia, and everyone. We'll take care, and we will see you next week.